Hey there guys, gals, and non-binary pals, GM Potter here. Welcome to my channel where I talk about books and bookish things. It is the start of a new year, so I thought no better time than to talk about money matters. And today's book is Beyond Getting By, The Financial Diet's Guide to Abundant and Intentional Living by Holly Trantham. Now, you may or may not be familiar with the financial diet. They're another YouTube podcast entity here on YouTube. They have a lot of really good advice for living within your means and controlling spending and that sort of thing. So I read their first book, which is The Financial Diet, last year. And this year, well, last year technically, it's 2025 now, I read this book. As of filming this, it's the 3rd, so I read this book, I think the week of Christmas. It asks the question, when looking at your current financial situation, strategy, what's working for you? What needs improvement? Like taking an actual honest look at your finances and figuring out what's going on, what needs improving, what doesn't, what's working, what can we keep the same, and all that jazz. So it talks a lot about the first little bit talks a lot about what they call shame-based budgeting, which is your Dave Ramsey types, which is your you should if you're in debt, you should never see the inside of a restaurant unless you're working there. That you're spending money, and that's shameful, that's awful, that's bad. How dare you spend the money that you worked so hard for if you have any kind of debt? And while true, if I have debt, I shouldn't be going skydiving every Thursday afternoon. I should probably be picking up some extra hours to get out of debt. I also shouldn't begrudge myself in this awful shame spiral for getting a cup of coffee at Dunkin' once a month. Like, that's not the end of the world. And I know Dave Ramsey likes to say that the beans and rice thing is a metaphor, but so many of the people who take it, I think, don't realize that it's a metaphor, and I don't think it started out as a metaphor. That's my opinion, but I don't think it started out as a metaphor. He's just maybe gotten into a little trouble and has since decided it's a metaphor. But, and then they talk about your typical 50-30-20, 50% on needs, 30% on wants, 20% on investing, and how even that doesn't work for a lot of people because it doesn't build in this space to be. And they talk about Freudian budgeting, which, not to get gross, isn't like I spend because I'm secretly in love with one of my parents or something. It's not gross like that. It's not the gross Freud, but it takes the ego, the superego, and the id into consideration. So in their spending plan, the ego is you spend an affordable amount on needs first. Your superego is you save enough to accomplish your financial goals. And then the id is you spend what's left over on wants. You spend from your needs category first, right? And then you figure out what your financial goals are. Say, I want to save 3 to 6 months worth of expenses in 6 months. So I need to break that down. Let's say I get paid every 2 weeks. How much do I need to save it in 6 months worth of 2 paychecks a month? So 12 paychecks. How much do I need to break that up? So save enough to accomplish that goal. And then your id is you spend whatever's left over on wants. Well, if there's nothing left over, then you can't spend it on wants this month. Maybe there will be next month. Maybe we'll find ways to shift some things around. Maybe once you've hit that financial goal that you're aiming for, then you can start enjoying again. But you should be going for your needs, your goals, and then your wants, which I thought was an interesting take. It also talks a little bit on the happiness threshold, that while money can't buy happiness, I personally disagree with that. I think money buys time, which you can use time to create happiness. Money buys stability, and stability eases stress. You know what's easier to to be happy when you don't have a lot of stress going on. Money, they talk about investing in close relationships, self-awareness, personal authenticity, real research-driven factors for happiness are your relationships, your self-awareness, and your personal autonomy. That's where your happiness comes from. That money can facilitate these things. That it's not so much that money can't buy happiness. Money, I don't know, what's the expression? I've never seen anyone frown on a jet ski. So, and then they have, I wish I still had the copy of the book. I've passed it on to a friend of mine, so I don't have the physical book with me to show you. But they have this really interesting flowchart for debt payoff. That building your 1 month emergency fund first. After your 1 month emergency fund is saved up, they talk about looking at your debt based on the interest rate percentages. And if it's 7% or greater, and you want to pay it off as soon as possible, you should do the avalanche method, which is where you line up your debts based on the interest rate, and then you pay off the lowest interest rate first, and then you compound that payment into your next highest interest rate, and so on and so forth. It's like the snowball, but instead of balances, you do it with the interest rates. And if you don't have a timeline for paying that off, then they recommend refinancing and getting it under a certain threshold. And if it's under 7% interest rate, well, is it causing you stress? If it's stressing you out, then yes, pay it off. Use the avalanche method. If it's not stressing you out, then you're cool to pay the minimum payments. It's not dire, which I thought was an interesting take, because so many financial people are like, oh, you should get out of debt as soon as possible, immediately, get out of debt. Debt is the worst thing you could ever do to yourself. Blah. And so this was kind of a refreshing take for me, that it was more personal finance is personal. And this makes it more, with the flowchart in there, it makes it more personal. It makes it more something that you can cater to your personal needs. Another thing they talk about is living abundantly, meaning knowing when you have enough. You might be able to tell, I have a lot of stuff. I like stuff. I'm probably not going to buy more stuff soon. In fact, my personal finance journey, I'm going on a low buy for the year 2025. I'm going to try and spend more intentionally, instead of just, I want it, I have the money, I'm going to buy it. So more, do I have space for this? Do I need this? Kind of a thing is what I'm doing. It goes into how to set up sinking funds, which is a way to set aside money every month for big expenses that are coming up. And my favorite quote out of the whole book is, no one is going to care about your money more than you do, which is so true, because everybody's got an opinion on your money in your life. Like, your mom has an opinion, your dad has an opinion, they may match, they may not. Your partner has an opinion, your brother, the guy down the street, the person who walks your dog, your cat has an opinion. They think you should be spending more on the good cat food and more treats. Everybody has an opinion on your money. But do they actually care about what you're doing with your money? Or is that something that you've got to put on you, and you've got to put on you and take care of yourself? So I thought that was a really interesting food for thought. As far as personal finance books go, this one is a solid 4 or 5 stars. I mean, it's a personal finance book. It's designed to be, it's written with the intention of being kind of an intermediate. Like, it's not, this is a budget, this is why you need a budget. It's beyond that, but it's not how to start a hedge fund. Like, it's that in-between step kind of thing. And I found it interesting. There was a lot of good information. I kind of wish there was more finance information and less talking about the psychology of money. Like, I enjoyed the psychology of money a lot. Like, I think that's one of my favorite topics, is the psychology of money. But that wasn't what I was expecting this book to be, and that wasn't what this book was billed to me as. So while I did enjoy it and I did find it really fascinating, I felt a little bit bait and switched, because I was expecting more of a personal finance course and less of a, this is how you vibe on a mental and emotional level with your money. And that's more what I got. So 4 or 5 stars. Should you read this? If you're interested in personal finance, definitely. If you want something that is beyond the basics, then yes, this is a very good book. Just be aware that it's a little bit more psychology of money than it is actual money, or at least I thought it was. So, what books are you starting out the new year with? Do you have any New Year's resolutions? Anything you want to focus on? My goal for the year 2025 is to read 120 books. This year, I've already got 2 that I'm working on right now. I think I read 148 books. I had one squeak in just before midnight. So I think I finished off at 148 books last year, which is kind of cool. So I'd love to hear what you've got going on in the new year, anything that you're looking forward to. Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.